Okay, thank you so much. Well, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for choosing this session. I know it's getting late in the conference, but I'm so glad that you're sticking around to the very, very end. What I'm going to do is quickly post in the chat a link to the App Store and the Google Play Store for Bitmojis in case you do like them when we go in a little bit more detail and you want to follow along. Today, we're going to be talking about welcome to humanizing online and remote learning through Bitmojis. So my name is Amy Kuntz. I am an instructional designer at Penn State's Teaching and Learning with Technology. I'm also an adjunct professor at Northampton Community College, where I teach Introduction to Computers. And I am also a Quality Matters reviewer. I'm going to let Sandy introduce herself as well.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sandy Hannigan, and I am the instructional technologist at Northampton Community College. I also am an adjunct professor there. I teach Intro to Computers, and actually Amy and I teach the same class. And that's how we came up with this presentation due to going remote last year already. We were charged with teaching this course in a blended modality. So we wanted to add a little more spice to it, and this is what we came up with. I'm originally from New Jersey. I taught elementary, junior high, moved to Kansas City. I did some teaching there, then moved on to some other occupations. I worked for Gateway Computers for quite some time, and I also taught as an adjunct in 2 of the community colleges there. Moved back here and in Pennsylvania, and here I am today.
Great, thank you. So what are we going to cover today in our 50 minutes together? First off, we're going to quickly talk about what are Bitmojis. Then we're actually going to give several examples, both from online asynchronous courses just through the LMS, then as well as online synchronous where you meet students in real time. But certainly some of these can be applied, and some of these were for in-person hybrid courses pre-pandemic, believe it or not. From there, we're going to go into the why and talk about a little bit of the research. And last, we're going to spend some time on how to create your own Bitmoji, as well as how to create your own Bitmoji classroom with a background. So please feel free to chat at any point. You do not have to wait till the very end, and we always like to build upon and of what your thoughts are at any time. So even if you don't have a question, feel free to post your comments in the chat at any point. So what are Bitmojis? Bitmojis are character representations of yourselves. Oftentimes this is on phone devices, and there's one example here. So after you go to Bitmoji on your app store, and again, I had a couple late people joining, so I'm going to put those links again in case you want to follow along. After you have one created, you kind of can use them in perpetuity and have some pre-made stickers, so to speak. When I say a sticker, what does that mean? Basically, you kind of scroll through the choices of what you're feeling at the moment. What's a good representation of you? So here, even if you search for something for coffee, when you type it out, it comes up with images that have coffee, but it uses your character representation as well. So what does this look like in a learning context? First off, before we do that, we wanted to see, have any of you actually used Bitmojis? And so if you click on reactions at the bottom of the Zoom screen, you could see several different aspects. We're going to use the green check mark and red X. So if you have used Bitmojis, click on reactions and press the green check mark. If you have not, press reactions and then press the red X. So we have some, great. It's a variety, and some people who have thumbs up, so that's great too. Fantastic. Thank you all so much for participating. So now we're going to go into, even if you are familiar with Bitmojis, how can you use them in educational contexts? So the first is an online course that was geared for traditional age students. This was pre-pandemic, and she was never going to meet her students in real time. She was very apprehensive because this course was placed upon her. It was part of a course which is called Shared Programs. And so in order to have a biology program at her campus and to have it added, they couldn't hire instructors. So they were sharing it among several Penn State campuses in the Southeast. And she's like, okay, if I'm forced to have this be an online course, I need to get myself across. So she was the one who said, hey, can we add Bitmojis to my course? And I said, sure, we'll figure something out. So we used different stickers. We then kind of she did this, she put a little bit of text overlay. So this is a course about parasites and their life cycles and everything like that. So she had the Save the Parasites t-shirt. So that's one example. And she had different reactions, different things throughout the course. So that way she could convey her style in addition to the instructional videos that she created by herself. The other thing is instructor presence. So a faculty member who was at Penn State Greater Allegheny has moved to a different university. She was like, I do not like my photo. I don't want it on my syllabus. So she had one of her former, like a friend or something like that, created one for her. It wasn't a Bitmoji, it was just kind of like a drawing. And I said, hey, now there's a thing called Bitmojis. Do you want to replace your picture or your drawn picture with this? And that way you could use different items in your course. So this was an in-person hybrid course. She then used it for her infographic syllabus on top of her traditional syllabus. And she then used it throughout some of her activities. Her goal there's a shortage of accountants in the Pittsburgh area, and she really wanted to have the passion of accounting and make accounting relatable. So by having the use of Bitmojis in her class throughout and kind of infographic style aspects, she was able to build a good rapport with her students. The next is interactive slides in an asynchronous language course for Spanish. And again, this was pre-pandemic. So this particular faculty member wanted to have students see herself. So this is her over here. And then she just had some kind of other ones that she created. And she made little recordings of how to pronounce different things within the Spanish classroom. So students, as part of their activity, are supposed to go here and click and explore on different things. So this is the professor. So this is la profesora.
La profesora.
And a book.
El libro.
And we'll do one more. We'll do chalk.
La tiza.
So of course she could have just done recordings and sent them away. She could have just pointed to other resources that said it out there, but she was able to kind of replicate her in-person classroom. She actually has a map in the one that she's at. And she was able to convey what she looks like. And so by having this interspersed a couple of times throughout the course, they were able to see her in a different light in addition to those instructional videos. The other is an office hour welcoming environment. And so this is one example of Professor Nichols, and she had it featured in a news story. This was during the pandemic. Penn State has what is called LEAP, which has students who are first generation college students start in the late summer and take like one or two courses, and also be in cohorts so they could meet one another and really make deep connections with faculty. And they also work on campus during that time. So that way they really have a great rapport going into the fall semester. From there, she has then used it in other courses as well, including her kind of capstone COM 430 or 473 course. And so with this, she updated the online office hour space that she had in the article. And on top of that, she really wanted to convey certain things like, hey, we're here together. Penn State got rid of spring break this year, but then came back with what is called wellness days. So she had links to resources. And then two, because this is an upper level class, she asked her students to make Bitmojis themselves. They then said, hey, do one of the stickers where it's just you, no other backgrounds. And so instead of having a page of all of their blogs, you actually click on the student and then click on their link to get to their ongoing blog. And so that way it's just kind of a different representation to doing things differently, having that sense of connection, having those aspects of what your students look like. And here they are. She even did masks, so they're all masked up doing that best practice. So last but not least is within my adjunct role, and Sandy's going to talk about hers as well, is to, when we meet with our students synchronously, to kind of get some of that character aspects. So one of the first things that I do at the beginning of the semester is to ask my students and collect on a Padlet style Google Jamboard or Wakelet if you went to that session during the conference. Put little sticky notes about what they want, what they feel is a good online instructor and how I can best assist them. And one of the things is to be funny. It's to be personable. It's to be forgiving with the pandemic, particularly with due dates. But then it also is trying to be funny. I'm not a funny person by nature. So in hindsight, students have said, oh, I really like the Bitmojis that helped get your humor across. So I always have a few. In addition, instead of having just a traditional icebreaker, I try to have a few icebreakers throughout the semester. And even one icebreaker I redid kind of Netflix style. And then I showed what I have been watching. I have a 2-year-old, so Daniel Tiger's Neighborhood is there, as well as having some comedy in my life. And to this background, I said, if this course was kind of a TV show, what would it be? And so I have me kind of going back to reality there. Lastly, as far as an agenda, instead of kind of saying what we're going to do, I always have a visual Bitmoji agenda saying, hey, we're going to check in. How's it going? Then we're going to go over a little bit of lecture, but then we're going to have some brainstorming sessions, some interactivity. And then before you leave today, we're going to make sure that you're all set, ready, prepared to take on the assignments for the given week. So another thing that I always invite is questions, and I have a thank you slide for thank you for being there. And then I change it up each week, have some Halloween style costumes for the fall, for spring. It's getting warmer. We're seeing some flowers pop up here in Eastern Pennsylvania. So that is what we do as well. So before we keep going, we just wanted to ask and pose a question to you. So if you're willing and able in the chat of these examples or one of your own that you have thought about, where do you see Bitmojis fitting into your classroom? So we'll give it a few seconds. If not, that's okay. I know it's the end of this, a great conference. Announcements.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. Okay, and Eric says, I use one in introduction video to say hi and tell them where to start. That's great. Announcements and mini lessons. So Mary says professional learning with adults and see a way to change it up. So yeah, so our target audience is mostly traditional age students for my Penn State role, but for Sandy and I, when we teach, probably half of our learners are adult learners and half are traditional ed students.
Sure.
Pages and Canvas, fantastic. Great. Well, thank you so much, everyone who chimed in, and feel free to continue to share ideas because what we implemented isn't just the only examples. There's other ideas as well. So as for research and why you might want to do Bitmojis if you're kind of on the fence, there are some outcomes when it comes to humor in general. So when you use humor in an environment, it promotes a positive experience. It reduces anxiety and stress, which I think is important now more than ever. Students perceive success. And so their perceived success is based upon their interactions with the instructor. So making it personable, trying to be that human element is really crucial for their success. And then lastly, there are some higher success rates and levels of engagement with humor in general. So you might be saying, well, that's just humor. What about what we're going over today? There are a few pieces of research literature that have about emojis and Bitmojis for research. The first is it really helps as a catalyst for expressing emotions and enriching text and nonverbal cues, especially if you haven't had the time to create your own instructional videos and you don't meet with your students. And in addition, it helps need to convey a clear message and show interpretations. And that one is also in a teaching context. But the last one, and what's photographed here, is in a library sense. So if you're not a faculty member, maybe you're a librarian, an academic advisor, support staff in some capacity. By having these connections in the library, it's showed that it helped connect students with the academic librarians. So I know for the awards, one of them had one of the great submissions had kind of that cartoon style aspect. So Bitmojis can also do that as well. So Julie, you posed a great question. A link will be shared towards the end. So we're trying to make sure that everyone is staying on the same page, but I promise we will share it at the very end. But if you are unfamiliar with Bitmojis and want to follow along and create your own, which is going to happen next, feel free to download the Bitmoji app in the App Store or Google Play Store. So because about half of those in attendance have actually already done this, we're not going to spend too much time, but it is kind of fruitful to know how do you go about setting it up. So after you have one of these downloaded on your iPhone or Apple device, so great question. There kind of is a desktop one, but they really stress to first get it on here and then have the desktop extension. So they really push for you to first create it on iOS or Android. And then once you have it created, then you could use it on Chrome. So yeah, and we'll get there after this. So great question. So after you create an account, you set up your birthday, and then you could either start from scratch or you can start with a selfie. I wanted to change things up because you already see my face. So this is my son. This is a couple months ago. So he's grown up a bit since then. And so if you do that feature, and it picks up kind of the elements of what you may want to stick with. If you don't like it, you could change it up and you choose such things as choosing your skin tone, your hair color, and then your hairstyle. And you can see there's lots of varieties here and there's pages upon pages. So you could really manipulate your Bitmoji or avatar, so to speak, very personably. From there, other things include eye shape, your nose, eyewear, freckles, blush. We didn't do everything just to save time. And then from there, you get to choose headwear, your body type. And then if you're stylish, you can have name brand picked out outfits. But if not, and you want to kind of do it by hand, you could do that as well. So from there, after you have that search ability for stickers and be able to search certain terms as well as have the most kind of popular aspects. So before we go into the next phase of how to quickly use the mobile Google Chrome version to get Bitmojis and then put them in a classroom setting, if you're one of those people who have used Bitmojis in the past, have you used the selections to convey your feeling, humor, or personality? What kind of did you search for? Was it that coffee drinking one earlier on? Was it maybe a holiday or something else?
Mm.
Instead of a long
That's a
email
good one.
response Bitmoji. Yeah, straight and to the point. Holidays when I wish
Oh.
everyone was in chat and haven't really much used it in class. Yeah. I think I use it more for class than I use it for my personal life, for sure. Okay, great. Well, if you're in the middle of typing, please feel free to keep typing. We'll love to see what you have to share. But I know that some people might not want to, which is okay as well. So what was asked is, how can you do this within a computer? And so after that initial setup and you have it done, if you go to bitmoji.com, it's at the bottom of the page. So I wanted to show you, because this kind of can get hidden. If you go to bitmoji.com and you go all the way down, it's this right here. So I already have it installed, but if you have never used Google Chrome extensions, and unfortunately it's only on Google Chrome, it'll say add to Google Chrome. And so you just press this button, and then it kind of automatically installs. And then from there, you might be saying, well, how do we use it? So you basically click on the little button, and we have these slides for you to refer to later, and then you could search. This was that mock-up, so it's not me. And you can see that there's recent, and then there's kind of most popular that's going on right now. And so to utilize it in the presentations, all you do is click on an image, and then it'll always have that pop up that says right click and choose copy image from the menu. And so before I pass things off to Sandy, I quickly do want to go ahead and show you what this looks like. And so let's say I need to get my slide deck ready for next week. I click on extensions if it's not there, and click on Bitmoji. And then it brings up my Bitmojis. So I have some recents, which is learning from home. But if we want to say it's Friday, you can see there's wonderful cats, or let's say it's springtime. Let's do spring. So we have some Easter, but we have some spring that we're growing and learning. And then even if you want it in a more kind of educational context, we do Excel, or if there's certain things, you could type in a word and it kind of formats it that way. So if I right click and click copy image or save image as, it saves it to your computer. And then if I wanted to paste it someplace, let's say that I was working on this presentation, you could then go ahead and paste it in there. Oops, sorry, we have that as well. So that's all you have to do is right click and paste, and then you have it. So Mary then says, I'm an English teacher and use Bitmoji stickers to teach some English words and idioms as well. Fantastic. Thanks so much for sharing. So with that, I'm going to pass things over to Sandy to talk about how she uses Bitmojis in her class, as well as how to create that background after you have your Bitmoji.
All right. So as you can see here, I have a few of my slides. I change up every week. So every week I have a new first PowerPoint slide. So when students come into Zoom, my class is very early in the morning. It's at 8 o'clock. So sometimes I'll put in the coffee cup or something like that. But these are the things that my students see when they first come in the morning. And as I mentioned, I change it up. I created my slides, and if you want to move to the next slide, I think it's on that one, Amy. I created mine on my own. So there are many, many, many different slides that have been created by instructors that you can, use and change out, different scenes. But I created mine on my own by just going to Google and opening up a slide and choosing a theme, and then I create my content. And so the trick is, when you add your images, use the Google Images with a transparent background. So if you want a table or a background, you'll look for transparent background, and then you'll be able to place other things on top of that background and manipulate it any way you'd like. And you'll see that a little later, which ones I've used. So you can add your own images if you like. After you choose your background, you can resize as needed, adjust each slide. And so I created mine that way. You know, instead of using someone else's, I have original ones every week. So I think on the next slide, I have some examples. Here you go. So all of this was done by creating a slide from scratch in Google, creating a theme. And so everything here is basically transparent. So the bulletin board that I chose is a Google image, and I chose a transparent bulletin board, I believe. And then the same thing with the window. The Bitmoji is my own Bitmoji. Again, just as Amy showed you before, I have the Bitmoji extension in Chrome. I click on it, choose whatever I want, and put that in my slide. I have the bookcase. The flag was also a transparent image. So, and then I could write whatever I want or add anything I want to the bulletin board, or, you know, any that little rug that's on the floor. Sometimes I'll put a Bitmoji on top of it and change it, as I said, if every week. I think there's more on the next slide. And that's yours. Okay.
Yep.
So this is Amy's, and she'll explain more about these are standard background templates, correct, Amy?
Yeah, that's correct.
That's
So
what you used.
before I do that, one great question is, how did you get the floor and the wall? So do you want to talk about that?
It was a background. I chose the background, and that background had a wall and a floor. I just extended the wall to make, you know, to look this way. Actually, there is a Google, I believe, well, maybe it's PowerPoint slide that has that almost the exact same background. But there are several different backgrounds that you can choose in Google, and look for a transparent background, and there's several of them. Good question.
Yeah, and I'll get to some other examples or other ways that you could use existing ones and kind of take away.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
one thing that we'll get to in a little bit, and maybe I'll go ahead and actually post the link to this as well, is some of this. There's lots of K through 12 teachers and other
Yes.
higher ed professionals who've done some of the backgrounds for you. So in the link, it's not just the link to our slides. It actually takes you to our slides, as well as this wonderful folder of resources and examples. There is a few that are here, and I'm going to just open up one. For these, this one is probably the most robust. They actually have examples, and you could literally just kind of, if you are into Google Slides, you just kind of copy and paste. If you're not a Google connoisseur and you want to use PowerPoint, you could actually copy and paste the slides, or you could actually go to File, Download, and PowerPoint. So it downloads the entire presentation as a PowerPoint file, and you kind of just delete all the rest. What is really nice about this one is if you have particular colors, you can see variations. And then later on, they have some holiday themes because it's being Zoom, and this one has a lot of slides. It takes a little bit to, some of them are a little bit kind of yeah, perfect. Yeah, exactly. So I know for me, even if you didn't like any of this, and I don't want to delete too much, but let's say you like this, but you're not into pillows or words. So you can, and please don't edit this right now because I'm editing it. You could delete some of this stuff. So you could say, hey, that's not really my style, but this is. And then you could change up word wall to something else. So I'm going to quickly undo because I want to keep the original item as is. But that is something there to do. So there's also ones down below for Harry Potter or holiday rooms. And so again, it's great to start from scratch, but you could also have it there for you. And so I'm a big proponent of that. And so the other ones here has other examples. And then I believe it was this one. You actually have to, oops, wrong one. Let's go. So this one, it's a Google slide to Google slide. So if you want rugs,
yeah,
I think that's the one that's the background. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
it looks familiar. Yes.
So that way, if you want to have elements and build your own, you can do that as well. So that is there for you. Feel free to use, adapt. Everything that we have was Creative Commons, and they said not to even attribute it. So that's why we didn't there, but it's on the slide details. The other thing, which I'm going to go for, is let's say you really like a certain photo, or you want to find some on your own. So some of the great things, there's what's called Creative Commons image search. And so that way you could find resources that way, and you could search for an office background and notes. Sandy said you could add transparent. So that way it's already a transparent background. But let's say you really like something, but you couldn't find anything when you did transparent, like background, transparent furniture. So let's say you like this stool, so to speak. You download it, which Unsplash is going to get bought out, or is in process of getting bought out by Getty Images. So Unsplash, the terminology might change if you're watching the recording. And there's a couple ways to do this. We teach PowerPoint, so I want to quickly go over PowerPoint. So if you are in PowerPoint and you select an image, you click on Picture Format and Remove Background. It looks purple for a second because that's what's going to be taken away, and you press Keep Changes. And then just like that, it's taken away. Now you can see it's not perfect. It has a little bit of blue here and there, but that's okay. We're giving each other some grace during this period of time. So your students are certainly okay with that. The other one is what's called Remove Image Background. And so I'm going to go to that website called Unsplash. And I think I said IKEA chair. I absolutely love this chair. It's one of my favorites. So I downloaded it, and then I told my students, like, hey, that's my chair down in the family room. So then I downloaded it, and then if you go to a website called Remove BG, and again, it's on the slides for you in case you forget, and then you don't even need to create an account. So I just click and drag the image. I already did this, so it was down there. And so here it is. And then we say, hey, we want to remove background, and it does it for you. So then here, anything, if you are into photo editing, that background to show that it's background, it's kind of that gray and white checkerboard. And then that way you could download the version of that image without that background. And then that way you could use that elsewhere. So again, if you forget, we do have some quick steps for you, but I think it's really beneficial to have it in real time versus the slides. So that's all we were going to cover today. We didn't have as much conversation in the chat as we anticipated, but in addition, if you need some inspiration, we highly encourage you to go ahead and click on some of these examples. We have higher ed examples. Faculty Focus is a great newsletter that has talked about this. And so they have examples too of how they use Bitmojis. Again, this is pre-pandemic, so I think there's definitely a lot more usage now. The other one is K through 12 examples, but some other ones too include assignment creation. So this was thinking outside the box and something different. We always have rubrics or directions. And so to give students that extra external motivation by having some of these things where you intersperse some of the Bitmojis, like, hey, you can do this, you got this, you're rocking it, is always a beneficial aspect for sure. And then last, labeling in the classroom. This is just another one. So if we go back to in person, socially distanced, you could even have stuff printed out. I know we talked a lot about digital, but they had things printed out. And this was the one librarian. So fantastic. So one of the questions was to provide the link. And so again, I'll put that there. And that's fantastic. The Bitmoji as our email picture and Outlook. And that has certainly happened with some of our colleagues as well.
Some of our students also pick up on it and use that as their image in Zoom.
Yeah, great. And then really quickly, in case I know some people were coming and going. So again, that link will be there. And then again, either I forgot to share how to make a copy for your own, because you don't want to edit this. So if you go to File and then Make a Copy, entire presentation, or if you just only want certain slides, and then it'll copy to your Google Drive if you're a Google connoisseur rather than PowerPoint. Okay, fantastic. Thanks so much, Katrina. So with that, we do want to thank you. Is there any questions? We have about 10 minutes for Q&A.
There's just so much you can do with those, you know, the Bitmoji stickers. So I think someone mentioned announcements, and I do that as well. When I send out an announcement, I will, not every time, but you know, when it's appropriate, put a little Bitmoji sticker on, like if they did a great job on their quiz or a discussion forum. You know, I just think it's fun for students and really engaging for students. So I have an agenda just as Amy does too, and we discuss what you know, this upcoming week's assignments are, and I use many of the stickers to say, oh, a job well done last week, or you know, oh, spring is here. As I mentioned, I changed mine up, you know, that first slide every week. So when it was spring, I had the spring emoji. Last year when it was voting time, there was one that said I voted. There are several with masks on, so just make it as personable as you can.
Yeah, so Aubrey has a great question. How do you handle accessibility? There's kind of two approaches that you could do. And for this example that I have, because we use it for live students, I never made it accessible, but for that, if you wanted to have it for each one, what you would do is treat it like its own image, like each part. Or because most of this is kind of a non-decorative image, make sure that you focus on what is important to your content and make sure you have the alt text for that. So for Google, if you click on an image and then go to, oops, that's not helpful. Sorry, right click. There we go, alt text, and then put that description there. As far as the other examples that I had done for within Canvas and things of that nature, we actually saved the entire thing as an image. So yes, like here we had like kind of the editable version of moving things, but then we did a file save as a PNG file, and then that way we didn't have to do the alt text for each certain one because it was that collectiveness as a whole. So animated Bitmojis, how is that done? I think that's to me, I believe that's more in the app,
Yeah.
because most of these are stickers, but if you search different stickers, there's usually variations of that. But if you do have this on the phone, there are some more that are animated. And then the one example that I had from the other faculty member, some of the background elements she made flashy and animated. So we have another question, maybe I missed this, but there are Bitmoji creation apps that can be accessed and used via desktop. So no, unfortunately, the first time to create your Bitmoji, you have to have it on your mobile device, either Android store, the Google Play Store, or the Apple Store. And then after you have that initial creation, then you can use it on your desktop only in Google Chrome. Unfortunately, they don't have anything in Firefox or Safari or Edge, Microsoft Edge, but it is a Google Chrome extension. So I'm going to go to bitmoji.com just to show you what that is. And so if you go to bitmoji.com and scroll all the way down, again, these two allow you to create. And then after you have it created, you can install this and log in with your account. Really good questions.
Very good.
Okay, well, thank you to our moderator to put the session evaluation. Feedback is a gift, as my supervisor always says. So we highly encourage you to fill out the evaluation session and then stick around for the wrap-up session. So with that, we'll stay here and stick around, but thank you all so much for coming and enjoy the remaining time of the conference.
Thank you, everyone. Yeah, thanks for being here. Have a nice weekend.
You want me to go ahead and stop the recording?
Yeah, that would be great.
Okay.